Hi everyone, and thank you for joining. Today we're going to be doing the modifications for the Draft Dodger surface mount and Unit T mail slots. Some of the tools that you're going to require for these changes are a flathead screwdriver, a plier, a lighter, and an inexpensive X-Acto. Some of the modifications we'll be doing today are adjusting the brushes, removing the brushes, adjusting the torsion on the torsion rods, and repairing the torsion rods if they have broken. An important thing is to set the top set of brushes to be put on the interior side. So what I mean by that is by moving the bottom brushes to the exterior side, you will actually give yourself a much easier passage for small letter or parcels to pass through. What I mean by that is if you have a loose or soft parcel, when you put force on it, it will push the parcel down to the bottom and allowing it to be passed through, thereby not putting as much pressure along the torsion rods, and you can have an easy entry of your parcels. So if you don't like the brushes, you can simply remove them. So I'm going to go to the one that's installed on the door, and that'll give us a better picture. I would like to make note as well that this is the surface and this is the Unit T because it has a telescopic sleeve and it's universal. And the brushes for the Unit T are on this is the exterior side, are on the interior side. And they are set in properly. So first thing you can do is always make sure that the top brushes are facing the inside of the house. Right now we have our brushes and we need them to be removed. You can simply use your hand, and with a little bit of force you can take them out. If you find that some of them are really hard or some of the older versions have glue in them, you can take a flathead screwdriver and you can work your way into the channel and delicately apply rotational pressure to pop it out of the slots. Like so. If you feel like you said, you know what, I want to put them back, well, it's very simple. You just line them up to the holes, line them up to the slots, put a little bit of pressure with your fingers, and you can click them all back. Make sure to try to pull some of the sides here so that those brushes are really getting to the edge. Don't pull too hard because you might end up pulling them out of the casing that they're entrapped in. There you go. Another small detail that could happen is possibly the silicone gasket lining this frame has popped out, unfortunately. Well, you can simply re-put it in, or if you want to get a new one, you can find the parts online and you can have it received, and then you can simply set it up, put it into its respective groove, and then work along the edge. So let's get into adjusting the torsion rods. Specifically, what I mean by that is that the frame and the flap are tethered or attached with a torsion rod. So this is the torsion rod. It has a hexagonal head and a groove to fit a flathead screwdriver in, and the locking mechanism is at the bottom and it fits into the groove on the flap. So what I mean by that is you can see that there is a groove that has been cut out on the flap. What we'll do is the torsion rod will enter into the channel, we'll get just to the end of the frame and we will rotate it, and we will then push and it'll lock into the groove. And that is how the torsion is set on the flap. Now before we can do any of this, we first have to show how we actually remove ones that we find are too tight or one side has been broken. So you have found the tension on your flap is not to your liking. This is the way to either tighten it or loosen it. You can see that when you open your flap, the torsion rods are here and it's sitting into the groove. But there's not really access for you to try to pull it out of the groove and push it out. You could take a very small flathead and work your way, but it's dangerous and you might also damage your product or your door. So I found that the simplest solution is to use an inexpensive X-Acto knife and a lighter. What we will do is we will heat the tip of the knife, and with it being closed or open, you will heat it up to a point where you're able to keep pressure on the flap and work your way through the torsion rod. So here we go. It doesn't take long to heat up, and you might have to do it a couple times. Safety equipment is always required. I'm going to have it opened, and I'm going to work my way through, just like that. Now, as a quick example, you can take the X-Acto blade and you can push on the torsion rod to free it from its channel in the frame, and underneath you can see that the rest of the torsion rod is free. And there you go. There it is. So you don't need the lighter for both. You can lift it up. If you have some time and patience, you can try to remove it. Or the torsion rod, because it's not meant for the heavy rotation, it's just meant for torsion, might snap. But that's okay, because if you order new parts, you'll be able to have 2 for the surface or for the unit if you plan on changing the tension. The torsion rods come in also white and black. So this gets to the more complex part. What we're trying to do is take the torsion rod and slide it into the channel. Then, depending on what you'd like to do, you can not set a torsion by not rotating the hexagonal head, and it'll go in and you will just have a flap like this. No torsion. So you have your torsion rod, you have your flap, and you have your frame. What you can see is that the locking mechanism on the torsion rod has to be fitting into the groove specific way, but you want to make sure that the flap is in its resting state, and you will then first try to put it through the frame and then give it a little bit of a wiggle or assistance. You might have to lift it up and adjust it slightly to fit into the flap's channel. And you can see on the inside right now, we have, this one is not set all the way. This one is just about to make it. And this is where the important part is. You have to get it just to the edge, and you're going to have to rotate this to set some tension. Now you have to set it the tension when the flap is closed, and you have to understand that you're rotating it in a way so that the force that's going to be exerted is going to be pushing the flap down. So we can just, for this side as a demonstration, line it up, push it all the way through again, give it some slight adjustments here. You'll see that when I open it now, it has some torsion to close, but there's no torsion here. You can see that when I open it, the rod itself twists, and that applies the force. So for an interior door, there's 2 choices. One is to slide in just one side with no torsion and have the other side rotate one face of the hexagon or 60 degrees. If you rotate it further than 60, you go to 120 or 2 faces of the hexagonal head, you will have a very tight seal on your door. But on the interior doors, it's quite a challenge to pass parcels or letter mail through. So for today's purposes, we are only going to show you the single rotation. Now there's a couple tools you can use. You can have these pliers with a flathead or a flathead screwdriver that fits into the groove on the hexagonal head, allowing you to rotate the torsion rod. So I will show it for both tools, and we'll start with the flathead. What you're going to want to do is find the face of the hexagonal head and then find the groove. Now we are going to rotate it counterclockwise on this side, because that is going to keep the flap closed. If we went clockwise, well, you can see here, it opens. With a close-up, you can see that the faces of the hexagonal head and the frame are matching, and this is perfect. You're at the right stage. Now what you need to do is go one rotation of the face, hold it, and wiggle your way in slightly. This is a critical step because this is your point of no return. The minute that you decide to put a little bit more force, it will find itself in the groove of the flap and it will lock itself, and you'll have to go through the steps of removing it. So a good time here is to actually lift the flap open and feel what the torsion is on the flap. Now you can see that there's torsion. It's a tight seal. So here we go. We've turned it one time, 60 degrees in one face, and we're going to push it in. And now you can see that it's getting into the groove. You can move the flap to the edge of the frame, forward, and then put a little bit of force. And there you go. It is now in place. For the exterior, it is recommended that you rotate both torsion rods, one face or 60 degrees. And if you find that that is still too loose, then you are more than welcome to do another rotation on a face. Remember, just before you get it pushed into the end, you will have the ability to feel the torsion on the flap, and you can make an adjustment there. Once it is in place, it is not easy to remove. The other option is to use a set of pliers. You want to make sure that the pliers are flat faced and you can have a good grip on your hand and on just half of the hexagonal head. Now why I say that is because we are going to push that hexagonal head partially into the frame, and that'll give us that one chance to make sure that we are happy with the torsion. So like before, our first steps are to align the locking mechanism to the flap's channel, set the flap flat on the face, and work it into the channel. Now you can see on this side, our locking mechanism has not gotten into the groove of the flap, but that's perfect. What we're going to do is just at the end, we're going to put a little bit of this hexagonal head inside and we'll be able to test the torsion. So it's safer to be a little bit out when you play with setting up your pliers. Make sure that when you are rotating it to close the flap. You're going to grab just half of the hexagonal head. Make sure that you have a firm grip, and now you're going to work your way towards the edge. And the first thing that you're going to do is find the groove. Now I can see that it's entering and it's doing its job. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to purposely let go, and you're going to hear it go slip. That was me. I did that. The slipping is because you did not have a firm enough grip on the head of the torsion rod, and your hand was not closing it tight enough. So let's try that again. Right to the edge, and make sure that it feels like you're in the right spot, and then get in slightly. It can pull it back just a hair so that you can rotate it and turn one face of the hexagonal head or 60 degrees. Now in this state, I'm going to let go, and hopefully it doesn't pop back out. I'm going to let go, and we're in a very fragile state. I'm going to try to just keep my finger there, and I'm going to open it, and you're able to now feel the torsion on the flap. And because I was in a fragile state and I lifted it, it pushed back out of the groove. So if you're happy with it, I recommend at that point just pushing it in and calling it a day. We're going to finish it off now. I've got half of the hexagonal head with a firm grip, and I'm going to bring it up to the face of the frame. At this point, you find the right groove, it feels right, and I'm going to rotate it at 60 degrees and push it in, making sure that it's in place. There you go. I'm going to continue to hold it now and feel the torsion on the flap, and it closes. And now you have to just push it in very delicately. So you hear a click, and then you've locked it in place. And you can see that it's sticking out a bit, but that's alright. You can slide it over slightly, pushing it to the wall, using a flathead, and setting it into place. And there you go. You've got torsion on your flap. So there you have it. You've successfully modified your draft dodger mail slot. Remember that this can be done on the Surface model as well as the Unit T model. I hope you've learned something today, and thank you.